When renowned musician Mamadou Kone publicly challenged President Ibrahim Traoré at a major cultural event, no one could predict what would happen next. "People like you only understand power and numbers, not the melody of the soul," Mamadou declared, boldly inviting the young president to perform at the International Music Festival. The world burst into laughter. Everyone was certain Traoré would fail miserably. What no one knew was that Ibrahim Traoré had a deep-rooted past with music and an unexpected connection to Mamadou neither had realized. For 6 weeks, Traoré secretly trained under the strict guidance of Maître Salif, a revered master of traditional music respected by the people. He poured every ounce of his energy into honing each movement, each breath, pushing both body and spirit to their limits. From two seemingly irreconcilable paths, a military general, the other a master artist, they were ultimately linked by a shocking and unforeseen truth. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The grand hall of the Ouagadougou Cultural Center shimmered with lights and vibrant batik fabrics. The annual Music for the Future Gala had drawn wealthy philanthropists, prominent figures and art lovers, all gathered to raise funds for music education in schools. Ibrahim Traoré stood quietly at the back of the room, a glass of baobab juice in hand. He hadn't planned to attend tonight, but his assistant had reminded him that his government had made a significant contribution to the charity. "Just 30 minutes," she said. "Take a few photos, shake a few hands, and you can get back to work." He glanced at his watch. 8 minutes to go. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight shone on a massive kora at the center of the stage. The crowd fell silent as a tall man with black hair flecked with gray stepped forward. Even President Traoré recognized him. Mamadou Kone, West Africa's famed kora artist, whose performances sold out worldwide in minutes. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced formally, "please give a warm welcome to our special guest and the president of the Music for the Future Foundation, artist Mamadou Kone." The audience erupted in applause. Mamadou gave a slight bow, his face stern. He sat at the kora but didn't play immediately. Instead, he adjusted the microphone. "Before I perform," Mamadou said, his voice carrying a musical quality, "I want to thank everyone who has contributed to our noble cause tonight." Polite applause followed. "But I must speak on something that has troubled me for some time." Mamadou's gaze swept the crowd. "In recent years, I've noticed a disturbing trend. People who know nothing of art or music suddenly decide they can use their power to claim a place in our world." A murmur rippled through the room. Ibrahim Traoré shifted, feeling uneasy. "Take, for example, certain leaders or those in positions of power," Mamadou continued, his tone sharpening. "They think that because they can run a country or make tough decisions, they understand beauty and creativity." A few heads turned to glance at President Traoré. He stiffened, his baobab juice glass hovering mid-air. "I see President Traoré is here tonight," Mamadou said, pointing directly at him. The spotlight wavered until it pinned Traoré in its blinding glare. "Tell me, Mr. President, have you ever created anything that wasn't for political or personal gain?" The room fell silent. Phones went up as people began recording. Traoré cleared his throat. "I believe building a strong nation and protecting its people holds value beyond any gain," he said, his voice steady despite the unexpected attack. Mamadou smirked, a short, scornful sound. "That's not what I asked. Have you ever created pure art, something that serves no purpose other than to stir the human soul?" Before Traoré could respond, Mamadou pressed on. "I challenge you, Mr. President. Our International Music Festival is in 6 weeks. If you truly respect art, come perform at our festival. Show us you understand what it means to create beauty." The artist turned back to his kora. "But you won't?" Mamadou added, his voice dripping with mockery, because people like you only understand numbers and dry decisions, not the notes, not the melody of the balafon. His fingers struck the kora's strings, launching into a powerful traditional melody. The spotlight left Ibrahim Traoré, but he still felt hundreds of eyes on him. His face burned. He set his glass down and swiftly headed for the exit. Outside, the cool night breeze brushed his face. His driver hurried to open the car door, but Traoré waved him off. "Give me a minute." His phone buzzed, then buzzed again relentlessly. He pulled it out and saw notifications flooding in. The video had been posted, spreading like wildfire across social media. The Traoré challenge was trending. He opened a clip. There he was, his stunned face as Mamadou Kone publicly mocked him. The comments were worse. "Traoré just got owned. Time." Someone called out these rigid leaders. Traoré's grip tightened. Few things bothered him more than being underestimated, being told he couldn't do something. He'd heard it before when he started his military career. Impossible. When he became a young leader, he'll collapse in a year, and countless times before. His phone buzzed again. It was his communications director. "Mr. President, we need to respond to this Mamadou Kone situation. It's blowing up online." "I'll handle it," Traoré said. "We should issue a statement that I said I'll handle it." He hung up and opened his phone. His fingers hovered for a moment before he typed, "Challenge accepted. Mamadou Kone, see you at the festival. I'll bring the music. You bring the humility." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Within seconds, his post was shared thousands of times. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was his close friend Tariq, sounding panicked. "Are you insane? You can't play a traditional instrument at an international music festival." "Who says I can't?" Traoré replied. "Do you even play an instrument?" "I mean..." Traoré looked up at the twinkling night sky. "Guess we'll find out soon enough." By morning, the story had exploded. News editors debated whether it was a publicity stunt or a genuine showdown. Music critics posted analyses about amateurs invading professional spaces. Memes flooded the internet, showing Traoré playing everything from tiny toy koras to gun-shaped instruments. At government headquarters, his executive team waited in the meeting room, their faces tense. "This is a distraction we don't need right now," the chief of staff said. "Mamadou Kone's challenge is all anyone's talking about. National security metrics are still up this quarter," Traoré said, dismissing their concerns. "And the agricultural development project is ahead of schedule." "Mr. President," his legal advisor said gently, "you need to address this. If you back out now, we can spin it as the bigger man's move." Traoré looked around the table. "Who said anything about backing out?" "You're not seriously going to perform at the festival, are you?" the operations director asked. "It's only 6 weeks away." 5 weeks, 4 days, Traoré corrected. His phone buzzed with a notification. Mamadou Kone had replied to his post. "Ibrahim Traoré, I admire your courage, though not necessarily your wisdom. The festival welcomes all who truly respect music. Prepare well. The world will be watching." Attached was an official invitation to perform at the International Music Festival, one of the world's most prestigious music events. Traoré's assistant poked her head in. "Sir, there are 37 interview requests about the music challenge, and Mamadou Kone is on line 1. The executive team exchanged worried glances. "Tell them I'm busy," Traoré said, standing. "I have to practice." As he walked out, leaving his bewildered team behind, a faint smile crossed his lips. None of them knew. No one knew. And that's exactly how he wanted it for now. It was time for the world to see what Ibrahim Traoré could really do. But first, he had to remember how to do it. That evening, Ibrahim Traoré drove himself to his rarely used home on the outskirts of Bobo Dioulasso, where cashew and mango trees thrived. No assistants, no security detail, just him and memories buried deep for decades. The staff had been dismissed early. Traoré walked through the quiet rooms until he reached the study. There, beneath a painting of a traditional village, stood a large, dark brown kora, still gleaming despite years of neglect. He brushed a thin layer of dust off its smooth surface. When was the last time he played? 5 years ago? 10? Traoré sat on a stool and lifted the cover, revealing taut, shimmering strings under the dim light. He positioned his hands, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes were hesitant, like a child taking their first steps, but his fingers soon remembered. The music flowed. It was a traditional manding piece, a soulful nocturne, imperfect but with surprising skill for a military leader. As he played, Traoré's mind drifted to a small village in Bondokui years ago. "Mama, I don't want to go," 9-year-old Ibrahim grumbled, dragging his feet as his mother Fatoumata led him toward a small house at the end of the road. "Maître Salif is waiting," his mother said firmly, "and the lesson fees are already paid. But Buraima and I were going to build a bird trap today." Fatoumata knelt to his level. "Ibrahim, life is more than mischief and dry numbers. Maître Salif is a very special teacher. He's played for kings and chiefs in the region. Then why is he teaching kids in Bondokui?" His mother's face grew serious. "Because sometimes life takes unexpected turns. You'll understand when you're older." The door opened before they could knock. A lean man with graying hair tied tightly back stood at the threshold. Despite Burkina Faso's heat, he wore a high-necked traditional robe with a small silver brooch. "You're late," he said, his voice warm but firm. "Sorry, Maître Salif." Ibrahim remained reluctant. The old musician looked down at him, his sharp eyes studying the boy. "So this is the boy who thinks he's too smart for music?" Ibrahim stared back defiantly. "I just don't see the point." To his surprise, Maître Salif smiled. "Then I'll show you." That first lesson changed everything. Maître Salif didn't start with dry exercises like Ibrahim's previous teacher. Instead, he played a resounding kora piece that made the small room hum. His calloused hands moved at an impossible speed, his whole body seeming to merge with the instrument. When he finished, he turned to see Ibrahim's eyes wide with awe. "How did you do that? How does the kora make so many sounds at once?" "Ah," Maître Salif said, "now you've asked the right question." For the next 3 years, Ibrahim spent every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon with Maître Salif. He taught him theory, technique, and most importantly, how to feel music from the depths of the soul. Under his guidance, Ibrahim's natural talent flourished. "You play music like you make your plans," he once told him. Precise, logical, but with a spark of something more. Then his parents divorced. Ibrahim's father kept the house in Bondokui. His mother took Ibrahim and his siblings to Ouagadougou for better schooling. Amid the chaos of new schools, new surroundings, and the bitter fallout of his parents' separation, the kora lessons stopped. By the time Ibrahim entered university, the kora had become a childhood memory, something he was once good at but left behind. His focus shifted entirely to bigger dreams, serving in the military, building a strong nation, protecting its people. Music wouldn't change the world, so why waste time on it? Ibrahim Traoré's fingers faltered on the strings, pulling him from his memories. The piece he was playing had grown more complex than he remembered. He stopped, rubbing his wrist. His phone buzzed again. It was past midnight, but messages about the music challenge kept pouring in. Social media was ablaze with speculation. Betting sites started taking wagers on whether he'd actually perform. A message from his mother caught his eye. "I saw the news. Son, does this mean what I think it does?" Ibrahim texted back. "Do you still have Maître Salif's contact info?" 3 dots appeared. Then another message. "I thought he passed away years ago. Can you check for me?" Traoré waited for his mother's reply while searching online for Salif Kabore, Burkina Faso kora musician. Most results were about contemporary kora artists, but buried deep was a small article from a music history journal. The Forgotten Geniuses of the Jena Music School. There he was, a black and white photo of a young man with a kora. His posture was perfect, his eyes intense. The caption read, Salif Kabore, 1968. Once considered the future of West African traditional kora music before abruptly leaving his homeland in 1978. His mother texted back. Found him in my old address book. Last I heard, he moved to a small village near Bobo Dioulasso. I have an old phone number and address there. Traoré's heart pounded. Bobo Dioulasso, where his musical journey began, might be where it would continue. He dialed the number his mother sent, expecting a deadline. Instead, after a few rings, a frail voice answered, "Who's calling at this hour?" The voice was unmistakable, though thinner with age. "Maître Salif, it's Ibrahim Traoré. You taught me kora in Bondakui. I'm Fatoumata's son." A long pause followed. "So, it's the boy with too many questions." Ibrahim smiled. "I have one more question for you now. Ask away." "I've been challenged to perform kora at the International Music Festival. Will you help me?" Another pause. He could hear the old man's breathing. "Who challenged you?" "An artist named Mamadou Kone." A sharp intake of breath on the other end was unmistakable. "Come tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I still take my tea with lemon, no milk." The line went dead. Ibrahim Traoré leaned back, staring at his kora. From somewhere deep in his memory, his fingers found the strings to play a Manding folk song Maître Salif had taught him. The melody was simple but haunting. If he was going to do this, really do this, he'd need more than rusty skills and half-remembered lessons. He'd need the first teacher who showed him that music, like building a nation and protecting its people, could change the world. Tomorrow, he would start again. Ibrahim Traoré barely slept that night. His mind raced with forgotten melodies and the enormity of what he'd committed to. By morning, he'd sent dozens of emails to rearrange his schedule for the next 6 weeks. At 8:45, his car pulled up to a modest apartment building in the outskirts of Bobo Dioulasso. The neighborhood was quiet, with morning mist still clinging to the dirt roads. "Wait here," he told his driver. "I might be a while." The building had no elevator. Traoré climbed 4 flights of stairs and found apartment 4C at the end of a narrow hallway. He hesitated, then knocked. Shuffling footsteps approached. The locks clicked open one by one. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing Maître Salif. Time had stooped his back. He was smaller than Traoré remembered, his face etched with deep wrinkles, but his eyes were the same, clear and sharp as knives. "You're early," he said, "only by a few minutes." "Early is on time is late." He stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was small but meticulously tidy. Books and traditional sheet music filled every shelf. In the center of the living room stood a small kora, its wooden surface gleaming. "Tea's ready," Maître Salif said, gesturing to a small table by the window where a teapot and 2 cups waited. Ibrahim Traoré sat awkwardly on a wooden stool. "Thank you for agreeing to see me, Maître." Maître Salif poured herbal tea into both cups. His hands trembled slightly, but not a drop spilled. "I follow the news. I see what you're building, the roads, the agricultural projects, the efforts to rebuild the nation." He handed Traoré a cup, but didn't mention music. "You've been busy. Too busy to feel beauty?" He sipped his tea. "Why did you stop playing?" The sudden question caught Traoré off guard. "Life got complicated. My parents divorced. We moved to Ouagadougou. There was school, then university, then the military and national responsibilities." "Excuses," Maître Salif waved off. "The boy I taught would never make excuses." Ibrahim felt a flicker of the old defensiveness from their lessons. I had to focus on what mattered. And music doesn't matter? He set his cup down with a sharp clink. Play for me now. Why else are you here drinking tea with an old man like me? Ibrahim stood and approached the kora. He sat on the stool, adjusting his posture as Maitre Salif had taught him years ago, and began playing the manding piece he'd practiced the previous night. His fingers moved mechanically through the first measures, not terrible but stiff. Stop, Maitre Salif's voice cut through the music. You're playing like a politician, all technique, no soul. It's been a long time, Maitre, Ibrahim said. My fingers forgot, but my soul still remembers. He moved to the kora, his steps slow but deliberate. Scoot over. Ibrahim slid to the edge of the stool. Maitre Salif sat beside him and placed his calloused hands on the strings. He began playing the same piece, and suddenly the room filled with music that seemed to come from another world. Despite his age, his fingers glided over the strings with grace and emotion, making Traoré's effort sound like a child plucking random notes. When he finished, he turned to Traoré. Now do you understand what you're up against? Mamadou Kone, Ibrahim said. Exactly. His face tensed at the name. He's the greatest kora artist of his generation. Everyone says so. You know Mamadou Kone? It wasn't quite a question, but Maitre Salif nodded. I knew him when he was a boy, before he became famous. He stood. You can't beat him. Ibrahim frowned. Then why am I here? I didn't say you can't play beautifully, just that you can't beat him at his own game. He walked to a cabinet and pulled out a stack of yellowed sheet music. But maybe you can play a completely different game. I don't understand. Mamadou plays to impress, to show off his skill. He opened the stack and selected a piece. You have to play to move, to touch the heart. He placed the music on the kora. This piece, I've only taught to 2 students in my life. Ibrahim looked at the title, written in the faded script of the Fulani language. Dawn after the dry season, he translated. My teacher in Timbuktu composed it. It's never been published. Why this piece? Maitre Salif's eyes grew distant. Because it can't be played properly without emotion, without vulnerability. All the technical skill in the world won't give this piece soul unless the player opens their heart. Ibrahim studied the unfamiliar notation. And you think I can learn it in 5 weeks? No, Maitre Salif shook his head. I think you already know it. You just haven't remembered yet. Before Ibrahim could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. The caller ID showed it was his operations director. He silenced it. You're a busy man, aren't you? Maitre Salif remarked. Too busy for lessons? I'll make time, Ibrahim said. I can come here. No, my neighbors are old. They complain about noise, and I don't leave this apartment much anymore. He tapped the sheet music. You'll set up a kora in your office. I'll come to you. You'll come to government headquarters? Is it far? About 40 minutes from here. Maitre Salif nodded. I'll come 3 nights a week after you finish your work. You want to practice at night? Is that a problem? His eyebrow arched. Do leaders need more sleep than old men? Despite himself, Ibrahim smiled. I'll arrange everything. When do we start? Tonight, midnight. He gathered the sheet music and handed it to Ibrahim. Study this, and find a recording of Mamadou Kone playing. Understand your opponent. Ibrahim took the music and carefully tucked it into his jacket. Maitre Salif, why are you helping me? You said yourself I can't beat Mamadou Kone. He walked to a small table and picked up a framed photo. He handed it to Ibrahim. The photo showed a much younger Maitre Salif standing next to a small boy by a kora. Is this Mamadou Kone when he was about 10? He took the photo back. He was my student before his family left Burkina Faso for abroad. My best student. He set the frame down, his fingers lingering on it. Until you. Ibrahim was stunned. But I stopped playing, I gave it up. And now you're starting again. Maitre Salif walked to the door. Midnight. Don't be late. And find a decent kora, not some electronic toy. As Ibrahim left the apartment, his phone buzzed again with missed calls and messages. The world was still buzzing about the challenge. Videos of Mamadou Koné's performances were shared alongside speculation about Ibrahim's musical abilities. None of them knew what he was planning. None of them knew about Maître Salif or Dawn after the dry season. By the time he reached his car, Ibrahim had made 3 calls. One to request a large kora be delivered to government headquarters, one to clear his schedule for late-night practice sessions, and one to a music shop to find recordings of Mamadou Koné's performances. The game had changed. This wasn't just about proving Mamadou wrong anymore. This was about proving Maître Salif right. Over 300 miles southwest in Abidjan, Zahra Koné glared at her computer screen. The 29-year-old music journalist had been working on the same article for hours, and her editor was losing patience. "Just finish the Traoré piece and send it." Marco's message read, "The internet's hungry for it." Zahra sighed and looked at her draft's title. "The Military Leader's Musical Delusion. Why Ibrahim Traoré Will Crash at the International Music Festival." The piece was harsh, even by her standards. Zahra had built her reputation at African Culture, magazine with brutally honest reviews, never shying away from criticizing even the most celebrated musicians when they fell short. Her reviews could make careers or break spirits. "This isn't journalism," she muttered to herself. "This is just fanning the flames." The problem was, she had no actual information about Traoré's musical abilities. No one did. In the 2 days since Mamadou Koné's challenge, dozens of articles had appeared online, all making the same assumption. Ibrahim Traoré couldn't possibly play the kora well enough to perform at a professional festival. Zahra prided herself on her research, on digging deeper than other journalists. She picked up her phone and made a call. "Mamadou Koné, it's Zahra Koné." "Ah, my favorite critic." Mamadou's voice was warm. They'd known each other for years, ever since Zahra's glowing review of his debut with the Abidjan Symphony Orchestra helped launch his regional career. "Writing about my little challenge?" "Yeah, everyone is. But I want your real thoughts, not the public performance you gave at the gala." Mamadou chuckled. "You always cut to the chase, Zahra." "Fine. Off the record." "Of course. I don't have an opinion. I don't know if Traoré can play or not, and I don't care. That's not the point." Zahra frowned. "Then what is the point?" "People like him, military leaders, power figures. They think they can buy their way into the arts with their money. They collect music like they collect stocks. They fund orchestras just to slap their names on shiny buildings," Mamadou continued, his voice hardening. "They treat art like another acquisition, not something sacred. So this isn't just about Traoré. It's about respect. Real artists dedicate their lives to their craft. We suffer for it. We sacrifice for it." Mamadou paused. "My father worked 3 jobs so I could learn the kora. My mother hand-stitched my performance clothes because we couldn't afford to buy them. What has Ibrahim Traoré sacrificed for music? Nothing." Zahra Koné scribbled notes as he spoke. This was good material, but something felt off. Why target Traoré so specifically? There were plenty of wealthy people claiming to love traditional music. Mamadou went quiet for a moment. "Let's just say I've followed his career with particular interest." "That's cryptic. It's all you're getting for now." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Write your piece, Zahra. Make it profound." After hanging up, Zahra stared at her notes. Mamadou was holding something back. It felt strangely personal in a way she couldn't place. She opened a new browser tab and started a different kind of research, not about Traoré's projects or Mamadou's performances, but about their backgrounds. 3 hours and several cups of coffee later, Zahra leaned back, eyes wide. She'd found something, just a small clue, but compelling. An old photo in a South African newspaper archive showed a young Ibrahim Traoré at a small kora performance. The caption mentioned his teacher, a Maître Salif. "Salif," Zahra whispered. It was a common surname in the region, but still significant. She searched Salif Kabore Kora musician and found the same music history article Traore had discovered. The timelines matched. A traditional Kora musician who left Burkina Faso in the late 1970s could have settled in South Africa in the early 1980s when Traore was a child. Zara's journalistic instincts were ablaze. This was a real story, not just a clickbait piece about a leader making a fool of himself. She started a new draft. The Lost Kora Prodigy. Did Ibrahim Traore study with a traditional Kora master? Her phone rang. It was Marco. Where's the article? It was due an hour ago. I need more time, Zara said. I found something interesting. We don't need interesting. We need views. Everyone's writing about this challenge. That's why we need a different angle. Zara hesitated. What if Traore can actually play? What if he studied with a traditional Kora master as a kid? Marco burst out laughing. Come on, Zara. If Traore could play the Kora, the world would know by now. He tweets about policy changes. Maybe not. Maybe this is the one thing he's kept private. Fine. You've got 24 hours to find evidence, but if you don't, I need the takedown piece we discussed. Our readers are bloodthirsty. Zara hung up and stared at her research notes. She needed more than old newspaper clippings and speculation. She needed to see Ibrahim Traore in person, preferably with a Kora. She booked a flight to Ouagadougou for the next morning. If the mountain wouldn't come to her, she'd go to the mountain, or in this case, to government headquarters. As the flight confirmation email arrived, Zara smiled to herself. Other journalists were writing opinion pieces based on assumptions. She'd find the truth, whatever it was. And if she was right, if Ibrahim Traore had hidden musical talents, this could be the biggest story of her career. Meanwhile, at government headquarters, Ibrahim Traore faced a mutiny. The nation's international credibility has taken a serious hit, the finance minister said, pointing to a chart on the meeting room screen. Social media sentiment analysis shows growing concern about your distraction. Around the conference table sat Traore's executive team, their faces ranging from worried to openly hostile. The emergency meeting had been called after President Ibrahim Traore ordered a large Kora installed in his office. Public opinion fluctuations are nothing, Ibrahim replied, scrolling through messages on his phone. We've weathered bigger storms. This isn't about passing gossip, Samira, the head of public relations, said. This is about government credibility and public trust. Recent polls show growing concern that you're distracted by this music stunt. Ibrahim looked up from his phone. It's not a stunt. Whatever it is, the finance minister continued, it's creating political and social instability. The country can't afford more instability right now. We're increasing agricultural output, breaking ground on a new processing plant in Bobo Dioulasso, and running border defense simulations simultaneously. Alassane, the operations director, added, You can't spend weeks practicing Kora for some music festival. Ibrahim Traore leaned back in his chair, scanning the faces around him. These were smart people, ones he'd entrusted because they understood his vision, but they didn't understand this. Did any of you play an instrument as a child? He asked. The unexpected question caught them off guard. Kora for a few years, the finance minister said. Clarinet in the school band, Samira offered. Violin, but I was terrible, Alassane admitted. Ibrahim nodded. And do you still play? They all shook their heads. Why not? No time, the finance minister said. Lost interest, Samira said. Life got in the way, Alassane said. Exactly. Ibrahim stood and walked to the window. Life got in the way. Adult responsibilities, career ambitions, practical concerns. He turned to face them. But what if those things aren't obstacles? What if they're the result of us forgetting what really matters? Mr. President, Alassane said, We get that you're making some philosophical point, but these are realities. You can't run multiple critical ministries and prepare for a professional Kora performance at the same time. Watch me, Ibrahim said simply. The room grew tense. Finally, Marcus Ouedraogo, Ibrahim's longtime friend and former colleague, invited to the meeting as an outside advisor, broke the silence. "Can I speak with Ibrahim privately?" The executive team exchanged glances, then filed out of the room. When the door closed, Marcus turned to his friend. "They're right, you know." "You too," Ibrahim groaned. "Hear me out," Marcus said, his voice calm. "No one expects you to go through with this. Mamadou Kone made you look bad for a moment, but it's fading already. You can back out now. Make it a joke. Donate 1 million CFA francs to music education, and it'll blow over. I'm not backing out. This isn't like building roads or agricultural projects. Those are ambitious but fit your image. This is bizarre." Ibrahim's jaw tightened. "Since when do you care about what's bizarre? Since you started risking everything you've built?" Marcus leaned forward. "Be honest with me. Can you actually play the Kora well enough not to embarrass yourself?" Instead of answering, Ibrahim picked up his phone and opened his calendar. "The Kora arrives tonight. Maître Salif starts teaching at midnight. I've blocked off 3 hours each night for practice. Maître Salif, my childhood Kora teacher, is helping me prepare." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "So you're serious about this? Actually serious?" "Yes. Can I ask why? And don't give me the philosophical lines you fed the officials. Give me the real reason." Ibrahim was silent for a long time. "Because Mamadou Kone was wrong." "Wrong about what?" "That people in politics can't value art." "Wrong about me." Ibrahim's voice softened unexpectedly. "Wrong about who I am and what I stand for." Marcus studied his friend's face. He'd known Ibrahim for 15 years. Through triumphs and near failures, public disputes and private struggles, he'd never seen this expression before. A mix of determination and something deeper, more vulnerable. "This matters to you," Marcus said. It wasn't a question but an acknowledgement he hadn't expected. Marcus nodded slowly. "All right, but you need a strategy to manage this. You can't just ignore the concerns about government credibility." "What do you suggest?" "Transparency. Controlled transparency. Share enough to reassure the public without giving everything away, like confirming you studied Kora as a kid. Say you're enjoying reconnecting with music as a creative outlet. Make it sound like a hobby, not an obsession." Marcus tapped his fingers on the table. "And set a strict schedule. Show people you're not neglecting national duties." Ibrahim considered it. "That could work. And one more thing," Marcus added. "Whatever you're planning for this performance, whatever you're working on with Maître Salif, keep it under wraps. The element of surprise. That was always my plan." The door opened, and Ibrahim's assistant poked her head in. "The Kora's here. They need access to your office to set it up." "I'll be right there," Ibrahim said. As the assistant left, he turned back to Marcus. "Help me convince the executive team to give me space on this. I'll do what I can," Marcus promised. "But Ibrahim, the festival is 5 weeks away. Are you sure that's enough time?" For the first time that day, Ibrahim smiled. "No, but that's never stopped me before." Late that evening, Ibrahim stood in his office, staring at the majestic large Kora now dominating one corner of the room. The national crest gleamed on the wall behind, creating a strange contrast between governance and traditional art. His phone buzzed with a message from Maître Salif. "I'm downstairs. Your security is very suspicious of an old man like me. Please assist." Ibrahim smiled and texted back. "Coming down now." As he took the elevator to the lobby, he felt lighter than he had in years. The officials didn't understand. Marcus didn't fully understand yet, but soon they would. Music wasn't a distraction from his work. It was the missing piece he hadn't realized he needed to reclaim. Government headquarters was nearly empty at midnight. Most staff had gone home hours earlier, leaving only security and a few dedicated engineers working late. The hallways were quiet. The lights were dimmed to their nighttime setting, but from Ibrahim's office, the sound of a kora echoed, played with careful precision. "No, no, no." Maitre Salif's voice cut through the melody. "Your hands are too stiff, like a robot's. Are you a man or a machine?" Ibrahim flexed his fingers, already aching after just an hour of practice. "I'm trying." "Try harder," Maitre Salif said, tapping his cane on the floor. Despite his age, he insisted on standing throughout the lesson rather than sitting, from the top. Ibrahim returned to the opening measures of Dawn After the Dry Season. The piece started simply with a delicate melody like trickling water, but quickly grew complex, with the left and right hands playing entirely different rhythms. Maitre Salif closed his eyes as he listened. When Ibrahim reached the middle, where the melody shifted into something warmer and more emotional, his fingers faltered again. "Stop." He opened his eyes. "You're playing the notes, not the music." "I don't understand the difference," Ibrahim admitted. Maitre Salif sighed. He walked to the window and looked out at Ouagadougou's lights below. "What does the dry season mean to you?" The question seemed odd. Heat, drought, waiting. "Number." He turned to face Ibrahim. "What does the dry season feel like? Not on your skin, but in your heart." Ibrahim thought for a moment. Isolation, stillness, anticipation. Maitre Salif nodded. "And the dawn after the dry season? Relief, renewal. The promise that things will grow again, good." He pointed at the kora. "Now play that music. Play the ice melting, the hope returning after a long, dark night." Ibrahim tried again. This time, he thought less about hitting the right strings and more about the emotion behind each note. The music began to change, less mechanical, more alive. "Better," Maitre Salif said when he finished, "but still not enough. Your fingers need to bleed before you can play this piece properly." As if his words were a spell, Ibrahim noticed a small red dot forming on the kora string under his right index finger. He'd practiced so hard the tip had cracked. "Should I stop?" he asked, showing his bloodied hand to Maitre Salif. Maitre Salif laughed. "Stop? We're just getting started. In our land they say music must be paid for, not with money, but with pain." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small jar of ointment. "Put this on. It'll toughen the skin. Then we continue." By 3 in the morning, Ibrahim's fingers were bloodied despite the ointment. He'd played the same piece over and over, sometimes just a few measures at a time, striving for absolute precision in each section. "That's enough for tonight," Maitre Salif finally said. "You need rest." Ibrahim stretched his hands, wincing. "I don't feel like I'm improving much." "You're too impatient." Even Mamadou Kone didn't learn this piece in one night. He began gathering his sheet music. "Practice the opening tomorrow. I'll be back the next night." As Ibrahim helped him with his coat, a question that had haunted him all night finally slipped out. "Maitre Salif, why did you teach this same piece to both Mamadou Kone and me? Out of all the pieces in the world, why this one?" The old musician's hands paused. "Some pieces aren't for everyone. This one requires a certain spirit to play it right." He looked up at Ibrahim. "I saw that spirit in both of you, yet you don't think I can beat Mamadou Kone. It's not about technical skill. Number Mamadou has practiced every day of his life since he was 5. You stopped playing for decades." He patted Ibrahim's arm. "But there are different ways to reach an audience. Mamadou plays to impress. You must play to connect." After Maitre Salif left, Ibrahim stayed by the kora. Though exhausted, he couldn't bring himself to leave. He plucked a few notes, then paused to examine his fingertips. Small blisters were forming where the skin had cracked earlier. He opened his laptop and searched for videos of Mamadou Kone's performances. There were hundreds. He clicked on a recent concert at a grand theater in Abidjan. Mamadou appeared on screen, tall and confident in black traditional attire, taking his place by the kora with a slight bow. The piece was a traditional Manding composition, fiendishly difficult with powerful chords and lightning-fast runs. Ibrahim watched Mamadou's hands glide over the strings with extraordinary precision. Every note was perfect. Every dynamic shift was exactly as the composer intended. The audience roared with applause when he finished, rising for a standing ovation. It was daunting but also revealing. Mamadou played with absolute technical mastery, but there was something almost too perfect about it. He never missed a note, never hesitated, never seemed to struggle. It was like watching a masterful machine. Was that what Maître Salif meant about playing to impress, rather than connect? Ibrahim closed the laptop and returned to the kora. He played the opening of Dawn After the Dry Season again, but this time he deliberately focused on the emotion of the piece rather than perfect execution. The dry season, its isolation, the endless wait for warmth. His fingers found the strings without needing his eyes, playing by feel more than sight. When he reached the middle, the renewal, he let the music swell naturally, like ice melting on a river. It wasn't perfect. He hit wrong notes, played some sections too slowly, lost the rhythm in others, but somehow it felt more alive than any of his previous attempts. The next night, Maître Salif arrived and found Ibrahim already at the kora, practicing the piece. "You've been practicing," he said, his voice tinged with surprise. "All day," Ibrahim admitted. Between meetings, during lunch, late into the previous night, whenever he could steal a few minutes, he returned to the kora. "Show me." Ibrahim played the opening, the part he'd been told to practice. When he finished, he looked up to see Maître Salif staring at him with an odd expression. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing's wrong," he said slowly. "Something's right. You found the dry season in yourself. Is that good? It's necessary." He set his cane down and opened his music bag. "Now we'll find the dawn after the dry season." Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern continued. Days filled with national responsibilities, nights immersed in music, 4 hours of sleep became his new normal. His officials worried. The public questioned. But the kora in his office became a sanctuary, and his fingers continued to bleed, as Maître Salif had predicted, not from poor technique, but from the intensity of his practice. The physical price of reconnecting with the artist he once was and could be again. Zahra Kone had been in Ouagadougou for 3 days, and she was growing desperate. Her editor called hourly, demanding either the promised evidence of Traoré's musical talent or the scathing takedown piece they'd initially discussed. She'd tried everything, requesting interviews through official channels, staking out government headquarters during business hours, even attempting to talk to staff as they left work. Nothing yielded results. Security was tight, and government employees were notoriously loyal. Her hotel room was littered with crumpled drafts and empty coffee cups. On her 4th night in Ouagadougou, Zahra decided to try one last approach. She'd noticed lights staying on in one section of government headquarters until midnight. If Traoré was practicing kora, as she suspected, he was likely doing it after hours when fewer people were around. At 1:30 a.m., Zahra parked her rental car at a commercial lot near government headquarters and walked to the sprawling complex. Guards patrolled the perimeter, but she'd studied their routines. There was a section of fencing near the back of the grounds where the cameras had a blind spot, if her research was correct. "This is either the biggest story of my career or the stupidest thing I've ever done," she muttered, slipping through a gap in the ornamental hedge. Heart-pounding, Zahra moved through the dark grounds, staying in the shadows of the buildings. She'd identified Traoré's office from public photostop floor, corner, with distinctive windows. Light was spilling from those windows, and as she got closer to the building, she heard it, the faint sound of a kora. Zahra froze, listening. The music was halting, repetitive, someone practicing a difficult section over and over. Then it stopped, and she heard a voice too distant to make out words. She needed to get closer. A service entrance to the building was nearby, used by custodial staff. Zara had borrowed a janitor's uniform from a hotel staff cart. Not her proudest moment as a journalist, but this story was worth it. Inside the building, the music was clearer. Zara took the service elevator to the top floor, her press badge hidden under the uniform. If stopped, she'd claim to be a cleaner responding to a late-night request. No one stopped her. The upper floors were deserted, except for a few offices where late-night staff worked. Zara followed the sound of the kora until she reached a hallway leading to President Traore's office. The door was slightly ajar. She crept closer and peered inside. Ibrahim Traore sat at a majestic large kora, his back to the door. His shoulders slumped with fatigue, but his hands moved over the strings with surprising grace. The piece was a melody she'd never heard, haunting and complex, with a rhythm that seemed to struggle against uneven harmonies. Zara pulled out her phone and began recording. "Your left hand is still too heavy," a voice with the rich timbre of Fulani said. Zara shifted to see an older man seated near the kora, his white hair neatly tied back. This had to be Maitre Salif. "Try again," Maitre Salif instructed. "Remember, the left hand is the dry season, the right hand is the first sign of dawn. They must struggle against each other." Traore began again. This time the melody in his right hand soared more clearly over the darker chords in his left. The effect was striking, like watching ice crack to reveal flowing water beneath. "Better," Maitre Salif said. "Now, the middle section." He stopped abruptly, his eyes flicking toward the door. Someone's there. Before Zara could retreat, the door swung open. A guard stood there, looking startled to see her. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. I was called to clean," Zara stammered, her phone still recording. The guard grabbed her arm. "Come with me." "Wait." Traore's voice was calm. He stood from the kora stool, studying Zara with curious eyes. "You're not a cleaner." Zara straightened, knowing the jig was up. "No, I'm Zara Kone from African Culture magazine. I'm writing a story about your upcoming performance." "Trespassing on government property and recording without permission," the guard said. "Should I call the police, sir?" Traore was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, to everyone's surprise, he laughed. "How long were you out there?" "Long enough," Zara admitted. "You're really practicing seriously." "Did you think this challenge was a joke?" "Everyone does," Zara said honestly. "No one believes you can actually play the kora." Traore glanced at Maitre Salif, who was watching the exchange with narrowed eyes. "And now that you've heard me play, what do you think?" Zara hesitated. As a critic, she was trained to be unforgiving, to spot flaws and weaknesses. What she'd heard wasn't perfect, far from it. But there was something compelling about the music, something unexpectedly authentic. "I think there's a real story here," she said finally, "not the one people are expecting." "Jim, you can let her go," Traore said to the guard. "Miss Kone, would you like to come in? I'll give you 15 minutes. The guard reluctantly released her arm. "Your call, sir, but I'll be right outside." As the guard left, closing the door behind him, Zara found herself standing awkwardly between Ibrahim Traore and Maitre Salif, who regarded her with deep suspicion. "So," Traore said, gesturing to a chair, "you broke into government headquarters to find out if I can play the kora. That's either admirable dedication or troubling obsession." "I prefer to call it thorough journalism," Zara replied, taking the offered seat. "And in fairness, my editor was about to make me write a takedown piece about you embarrassing yourself at the festival." "And now?" Zara looked at the kora, then back at Traore. "Now, I think something more interesting is happening, something no one else knows about." "I'll make you a deal," Traore said. Exclusive access to my festival preparations in exchange for your silence until the performance happens. Zara's journalistic instincts flared. This could be the biggest story of her career, but only if she waited. Deal, she said, extending her hand. But I have questions, starting with, what's that piece you're playing? I've never heard it before, Maitre Salif. Ibrahim and Maitre Salif exchanged a glance. That piece, Ibrahim said, is part of a story no one gets to hear until the festival. For the first time, Maitre Salif smiled. Over the next 2 weeks, Zara became a regular presence at the late-night practice sessions. She sat quietly in a corner, taking notes as Ibrahim worked with Maitre Salif on Dawn After the Dry Season. Though sworn to secrecy about the details, Zara negotiated permission to write about the process, the intensity of the session, the teacher-student dynamic, the physical toll of Ibrahim's crash course in Kora. Her editor was thrilled with the arrangement, planning a feature to coincide with the festival performance. Get Mamadou Koné's side too, Marco had stressed. We need both sides of this story. But Zara was increasingly drawn to one side in particular. The Ibrahim Traoré she observed at the Kora was entirely different from his public persona. Here, he was humble, patient, wholly focused on the music. No controversial posts, no bold statements, just hours of determined practice. Tonight, however, was different. Ibrahim arrived late, and Maitre Salif was visibly irritated. Only 3 weeks until the festival, he muttered, checking his watch for the 5th time. No time for delays. Zara was about to suggest calling him when the office door swung open. Ibrahim stepped in, his right hand clumsily bandaged with white gauze. What happened? Zara asked, jumping up. An incident at an irrigation system test. Ibrahim's voice was subdued. Nothing serious. Maitre Salif quickly moved to his side, gently taking his injured hand with surprising care. Let me see. Ibrahim carefully unwrapped the bandage. Zara winced at the sight of red, blistered burns covering his palm and first 2 fingers of his right hand. What did the doctor say? Maitre Salif asked. No permanent damage, Ibrahim replied. But they want me to rest it completely for 2 weeks. No, Kora. The room fell silent. 2 weeks, without practice, with only 3 weeks until the festival. It was a disaster. Maitre Salif studied the burn, his expression unreadable. Then he carefully rewrapped Ibrahim's hand. Sit, he ordered, pointing to the Kora stool. Did you hear me? I can't play. Ibrahim sat. Maitre Salif positioned himself beside him. Your right hand can't play. Fine. Your left hand is still good, yes? Yes. Good. Then we'll practice with just the left hand. He placed his own calloused right hand on the strings. I'll play the right hand part. You play the left. Together, we'll make the whole song. Ibrahim looked skeptical. That won't help me perform at the festival. You think you learn music only with your fingers? Maitre Salif tapped his forehead. You learn here first and here. He placed a hand on Ibrahim's chest. We adapt. We overcome. For the next hour, they worked this way. Ibrahim played the foundation with his left hand. Maitre Salif played the melody with his right. It was awkward at first. Their timing was off, the balance uneven, but gradually they found a rhythm, a way of breathing together that let the music flow. Zara watched, captivated. There was something profoundly moving about the old teacher and the leader-turned-novice making music this way, each providing what the other lacked. Tomorrow, Maitre Salif announced when they finally stopped, we try something new. Special exercises just for the left hand. After Maitre Salif left, Zara helped Ibrahim rewrap his hand. That was incredible to witness, she said. But I have to ask, are you going to pull out of the festival? Ibrahim flexed his left hand, cramping from the unusual exercise. Would you? If I couldn't use my dominant hand, probably. Then you and I are different. He stood, suddenly looking very tired. My ministries have been on the brink of crisis more times than I can count. I've seen projects fail, programs stall, government credibility dip. A burned hand won't stop me. Zara studied him. This really matters to you, doesn't it? It's not just about proving Mamadou Kone wrong. It hasn't been about Mamadou Kone for a long time. The next morning, at exactly 7 a.m., Maitre Salif arrived at Ibrahim's residence in Ouagadougou with a small suitcase and a stack of sheet music. "What's this?" Ibrahim asked, still in his robe, his uninjured hand holding a coffee mug. "I'm moving in until the festival is over," Maitre Salif declared. "We have much to do, little time." "You're moving in? You have a guest room, yes?" "Yes." He stepped past Ibrahim into the house. "Good. Now I can teach you morning, afternoon, evening. No more wasting time." Before Ibrahim could protest, he'd found the guest room and was unpacking his suitcase with brisk efficiency. "Maitre Salif, I still have ministries to run. I can't practice all day." "Of course not, but you eat, yes?" "Yes. We'll practice during meals. You sleep, we practice before bed and after waking. You bathe, you can listen to recordings I make." His relentlessness was both amusing and inspiring. By that evening, Ibrahim had adjusted to his presence in the house and to the new routine he established. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. By day, Ibrahim ran his ministries with his left hand, attending meetings and making decisions, while his right hand slowly healed. During meals, Maitre Salif worked with him on music theory and mental practice techniques. At night, they practiced physically, with Maitre Salif devising increasingly complex exercises for his left hand. "Pain is part of the music now," he told Ibrahim as he winced during a particularly challenging passage. "You must use it, make it part of the expression." Throughout, Zara observed and took notes. Though Ibrahim had asked her not to publish anything until after the festival, she witnessed how he adapted to his injury, how the music began to incorporate that struggle. Meanwhile, news of Mamadou Kone's preparations spread in music circles. He had announced an ambitious program for the festival, pieces chosen specifically to showcase technical brilliance. "He's playing to crush you," Zara told Ibrahim after interviewing Mamadou Kone for her article. "He's practicing 8 hours a day." Ibrahim, in the middle of a left-hand exercise that stretched his fingers into a near-impossible position, merely nodded. Good for him. 2 days before the festival, the doctor removed Ibrahim's bandages. The burn had healed, leaving pink, tender skin. Ibrahim carefully flexed his fingers. "Can I play?" he asked the doctor. "You can try," the doctor replied, "but gently at first. Stop if it hurts." That night, Ibrahim sat at the kora and placed both hands on the strings for the first time in weeks. Maitre Salif and Zara watched anxiously as he began playing Dawn After the Dry Season. The result was strange but captivating. His left hand, strengthened by weeks of intense solo practice, provided a powerful foundation. His right hand, still weak and slightly stiff, brought a fragility to the melody that hadn't been there before. When he finished, Maitre Salif was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Now you understand. The dry season isn't just the cold, it's endurance, survival against all odds." Ibrahim nodded, finally grasping what he'd been trying to teach him from the start. The day before the festival, Zara Kone was finalizing her article. She had arranged to meet Mamadou Kone for one last interview before the performance. As the most anticipated showdown in the traditional music world in years, Zara wanted both perspectives fully represented. They met at a small cafe near the concert hall where the festival would take place. Mamadou was dressed casually in a traditional shirt and dark trousers, but he carried the regal air of someone accustomed to the spotlight. "So, Miss Kone," he said after they ordered coffee, "you've been mysteriously quiet these past few weeks. No articles slamming Traoré's arrogance, no interviews about his inevitable failure. Why the silence?" Zara chose her words carefully. I decided to take a different approach, observe before judging. And what have you observed? That this story is more complex than it first seemed. Mamadou's eyes narrowed. You've seen him play? Zara neither confirmed nor denied. Instead, she opened her notebook and changed the subject. I'm interested in your background, Mamadou Kone. You studied in Bamako for a few years as a child. Yes, before my family immigrated to Burkina Faso. And your first teacher before the Bamako Conservatory. Mamadou seemed slightly annoyed by the basic questions. A local instructor, no one notable. Zara pulled out her phone and showed him a photo, the one she'd found in her research, depicting a young Maître Salif with a small boy by a kora. Is this you? Mamadou's face went completely still. He stared at the photo for a long moment before answering. Where did you get this? West African Music Arts Archive. They digitized their collection last year. Zara watched his reaction closely. That's Maître Salif, isn't it? Your first kora teacher. Mamadou pushed the phone away. Ancient history. He was merely my first instructor before I found real teachers. Yet, you still perform a piece he taught you. His head snapped up. What did you say? Dawn after the dry season, Zara said, watching his face pale. You've included it in some performances over the years. It's an unusual piece. No credited composer, nearly impossible to find in any standard kora repertoire. How do you know about that piece? Mamadou's voice was barely above a whisper. Zara closed her notebook. Mamadou Kone, why did you really challenge Ibrahim Traoré? Was it truly about politicians not valuing art, or is it something more personal? Mamadou was silent for a long time, his coffee untouched and cold in front of him. When he finally spoke, his voice lacked its usual confidence. My family left Bamako when I was 9. It was a difficult escape. My father had fallen out of favor with the old regime for speaking out against it. We left everything behind, including my kora. He looked out the window, as if seeing something distant and long ago. Maître Salif wasn't just my teacher. He arranged our escape, using connections from his days of fame. He promised to follow us to Burkina Faso within a year. But he didn't, Zara said gently. Number. We heard he was arrested for helping us escape. Later, we learned he'd been released, but was banned from performing or teaching at the conservatory. Mamadou Kone's fingers tapped absently on the table, as if playing invisible kora strings. By the time we knew he'd left Mali, we'd lost contact. My parents searched for years, but he'd gone to Ghana, Zara said softly. I only found that out much later. By then I was studying with great masters in Burkina Faso. My career was beginning. Mamadou's face hardened. And then 5 years ago, I saw an interview where Ibrahim Traoré mentioned studying kora as a child in Ouagadougou. He didn't name his teacher, but he described her methods. They were unmistakable. So, the challenge wasn't really about art versus politics. It was about him throwing away what I would have given anything to keep, Mamadou said bitterly. Do you know what I went through to keep studying with Maître Salif? And this leader got his instruction and then discarded it like it was nothing. Zara leaned back, the pieces finally falling into place. Have you tried contacting him since you learned he was in Ghana? I hired investigators. They found traces. He taught there for years, then moved to Senegal, then Nigeria. The trail went cold in Burkina Faso. Mamadou looked at Zara now. But you know where he is, don't you? You've seen him with Ibrahim Traoré. Zara hesitated. She'd promised Ibrahim secrecy, but this revelation changed everything. He's Ibrahim's teacher for the festival performance, she admitted. He's been working with Ibrahim for weeks. Mamadou stood abruptly, tossing money on the table for the untouched coffees. Thank you for the information, Miss Kone. I believe our interview is over. Mamadou Kone, Zara called as he turned to leave. What are you going to do with this information? Mamadou paused, his back to her. I'll do what I always do. I'll play better than anyone else on that stage. As he walked away, Zara immediately called Ibrahim. When he didn't answer, she texted, "Urgent. Need to speak with you and Maitre Salif now. Mamadou knows." Then she gathered her things and hurried toward the exit. The festival was less than 24 hours away, and what began as a simple challenge had just become far more complex and personal. When Zara arrived at Ibrahim's residence in Ouagadougou, she found him and Maitre Salif in the living room. The large kora sat open, but no one was playing. Instead, they sat in silence. Maitre Salif stared out the window, while Ibrahim checked his phone. "You got my message," Zara said, breathless from rushing. Ibrahim nodded. "Maitre Salif told me." Zara turned to the old teacher, confused. "You knew Mamadou was looking for you?" "I always knew," Maitre Salif said, his voice distant. "Just as I always knew this day would come. Why didn't you reach out to him? He's been searching for you for years." Maitre Salif stood slowly, his joints stiff with age. Some debts can't be repaid. Some wounds can't be healed. He walked to the kora and lightly brushed his fingers over the strings. "Mamadou was my first prodigy. I saw in him the career I could never have." "Because you helped his family escape," Zara said. "Because I chose freedom over art," Maitre Salif corrected. "The old regime gave me a choice: denounce Mamadou's family or lose my place at the conservatory. I chose to lose my place. Then I helped them escape. You were punished," Ibrahim said softly. 3 years in prison. When I was released, I was banned from performing or teaching at any major institution." He smiled faintly. "So I left Mali too. Ghana was far from the old regime's reach. I could teach there in peace." "And that's where you met Ibrahim," Zara said, the timeline finally making sense. Maitre Salif nodded. "Another boy with rare talent, different from Mamadou but special in his own way. But why hide from Mamadou all these years? Why not reach out when you knew he was looking for you?" "Because I failed him," Maitre Salif said simply. "I promised to follow his family to Burkina Faso. I promised to continue training him. Instead, I spent years rebuilding my own shattered life." He turned to face them both. "By the time I was free to move again, Mamadou was studying with great masters in Ouagadougou. He'd become famous, the prodigy from Mali. What could a disgraced old teacher like me offer him then?" The room fell silent. Outside, evening was settling over Ouagadougou, golden sunlight slanting through the windows. In the distance, crickets chirped. A mundane sound in this moment of revelation. "So what now?" Ibrahim asked. "Does this change the plan for tomorrow?" Maitre Salif straightened his shoulders. "Nothing changes. You'll play as we practiced. Mamadou will play as he always does, perfectly, brilliantly, and without heart. He'll be even more determined to humiliate Ibrahim," Zara warned. "This is personal for him." "It's always been personal," Maitre Salif replied. "Mamadou just didn't know why." That night, after Zara left, Ibrahim found he couldn't sleep. The kora called to him, but he resisted. His fingers needed rest before tomorrow's performance. Instead, he wandered the house, eventually finding Maitre Salif sitting in the garden, wrapped in a shawl despite the warm evening. "You should sleep," he said without turning. "So should you. Old men need less sleep." He patted the bench beside him. "Sit with an old man for a while." Ibrahim sat, noticing for the first time how frail he looked in the moonlight. For weeks, he'd seen only the strength, the demanding presence of Maitre Salif. Now he saw the decades etched in the lines of his face, the slight tremor in his hands. "Are you afraid to see him again?" Ibrahim asked. "After all these years?" Afraid, perhaps ashamed. He looked up at the stars. "When I was young in Bamako, I believed music was everything, worth every sacrifice, every pain. And now I know music isn't everything. It's important, yes. Beautiful, yes. But there are other things." He trailed off, lost in thought. "Like what?" "Like freedom, like helping others find their own path, even when those paths lead them away from you." He turned to look directly at Ibrahim. Like letting a gifted boy stop studying because his heart was pulling him toward grand initiatives and the stars instead of chorus strings. Ibrahim started. You weren't upset when I quit? Maitre Salif smiled faintly. Upset? Number disappointed perhaps, but I always knew you had a different journey. Music would be part of your life, but not your whole life. Unlike Mamadou. Yes. For Mamadou, music is everything. It always has been. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, an old pocket watch on a chain. This belonged to his grandfather, Sékou Kone. He gave it to me before they left Mali to remember them, he said. He opened the watch. It still ticked, its mechanism somehow enduring decades of use. It kept time for the Mali National Symphony Orchestra for 30 years. Sékou was the timekeeper there, before he became politically inconvenient. Maitre Salif closed the watch and placed it in Ibrahim's hand. Tomorrow, take this on stage, place it on the kora where Mamadou can see it. What will that do? It will tell him everything he needs to know. He stood, suddenly looking very tired. Now we both must rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. As Maitre Salif returned to the house, Ibrahim opened the watch again. Inside the lid, someone had engraved a message in Cyrillic. He couldn't read it, but he could guess its meaning. From the universal language of music, was written below, a few measures of dawn after the dry season. That night, Ibrahim dreamed of Bamako, a city he'd never visited, of snow and cold and music rising through it all, of a young Maitre Salif teaching a small dark-haired boy who looked at him with adoration, of that same boy now grown, playing for crowds unable to see the winter in his eyes. When he woke, the festival day had arrived. His phone was flooded with messages from government officials wishing him luck, from journalists seeking last-minute comments, from friends alternately encouraging him and questioning his sanity. But the message that caught his attention was from Zara. Mamadou Kone added, "Dawn after the dry season," to his program last night. He's playing it right before you. The challenge had evolved into something none of them had anticipated. A battle not just between politics and art, but between two different versions of the same musical soul. The International Music Festival was held at the National Theatre in Ouagadougou, a stunning modern structure of wood and glass. By noon, the building was besieged by an unusual mix of people. Traditional music lovers in formal attire mingled with young hipsters in casual clothes, all drawn by the unprecedented showdown. News vans lined the street. Social media was ablaze with speculation. Traoré versus Kone was trending worldwide. Inside the artist prep area, Ibrahim sat alone, staring at Sékou Kone's pocket watch. He'd traded his usual t-shirt and jeans for an elegant black traditional outfit. No tie, no ostentation. Maitre Salif had insisted on traditional concert attire. Not for the audience, he'd told him. For the music. It deserves respect. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Zara. "It's packed," she said, slipping inside. "Every seat sold out. They've set up screens outside for the overflow crowd." Ibrahim nodded, barely hearing her. His focus had narrowed to a single point. The feel of the music, the memory of Maitre Salif's instructions, the weight of the pocket watch in his jacket pocket. "Mamadou's warming up now," Zara continued. "He looks tense. Have you seen Maitre Salif? He said he needed time alone before the performance. He'll watch from backstage." Zara sat beside him. "Are you nervous?" Ibrahim considered the question differently than she expected. "When I launch a national project, there are a million variables. Weather, technical issues, management systems. I worry about those failing. But this," he flexed his fingers, "now fully healed. This is just me, nothing to blame if it goes wrong. And nothing to take credit for but yourself, if it goes right," Zara added. Another knock, more decisive. The stage manager's voice. "Mr. Traoré, Mamadou Kone is about to start. You're up right after." Ibrahim stood, adjusting his jacket. Zara impulsively hugged him. "Whatever happens out there, you've done the impossible," she whispered. "You're actually doing this." As Ibrahim walked toward the stage wings, he saw Maitre Salif standing in the shadows. He looked different today, his white hair tied back more neatly, wearing a simple black traditional robe with a small gemstone necklace that Ibrahim remembered from childhood lessons. "He's very good," he said softly, nodding toward the stage where Mamadou Kone now sat at the large kora, receiving the audience's enthusiastic applause. Mamadou Kone began with a classic manding piece, his signature work. His technique was flawless, his interpretation bold and precise. The audience was captivated. Even from the wings, Ibrahim could see Mamadou's complete control over the kora, how his body seemed to merge with the instrument. After two shorter pieces, Mamadou paused. The audience waited in anticipation. "For my final selection," Mamadou announced, his voice easily carrying across the auditorium, "I will play a piece very special to me. It was taught to me by my first kora teacher in Bamako many years ago." A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was off script from the printed program. "Dawn After the Dry Season is not widely known," Mamadou continued. "It exists in no published collections. It was composed by a professor at the Bamako Conservatory, who, like many artists during the old regime, was silenced for his political views. But his music survived through his student, who became my teacher." Mamadou's hands settled on the kora strings, and the opening notes of Dawn After the Dry Season filled the auditorium. The same piece Ibrahim had practiced for weeks, but Mamadou's interpretation was strikingly different. Where Ibrahim had been taught to emphasize the emotional struggle between the dry season and the dawn, Mamadou played it as a technical showcase. His fingers flew over the strings with astonishing precision. Every note was crystalline, every passage executed with machine-like perfection. It was beautiful but cold. The dry season, without the promise of dawn. Beside Ibrahim, Maitre Salif shook his head slightly. "He still doesn't understand," he whispered. "All technique, no heart." When Mamadou finished, the audience erupted in applause. He stood and bowed deeply, his face flushed with the satisfaction of a perfect performance. As he exited the stage on the opposite side, his eyes met Ibrahim's for a brief moment. There was defiance there, and something else, a deeply personal resentment. The stage manager touched Ibrahim's arm. "Your turn, Mr. Traoré." The applause for Mamadou still echoed as Ibrahim stepped onto the stage. The audience's reaction was immediate, a collective intake of breath, then an odd, expectant silence. Hundreds of phones rose to record what many anticipated would be a spectacular failure. Ibrahim didn't look at the audience. He walked straight to the kora, took Sekou Kone's pocket watch from his jacket, and placed it on the kora where Mamadou could see it from the wings. Then he sat, adjusted the stool, and placed his hands on the strings. For a moment he didn't play. He closed his eyes and recalled everything. The bleeding fingers, the burned hand, the late nights with Maitre Salif, demanding more emotion, more connection. Then he began. The opening notes of Dawn After the Dry Season filled the auditorium again, the same piece Mamadou had just performed. A confused murmur spread through the audience. Was Ibrahim directly challenging Mamadou by playing the same piece? But within moments, it was clear this was a fundamentally different interpretation. Where Mamadou's version was technically brilliant but emotionally restrained, Ibrahim's was raw, vulnerable, almost painfully personal. His right hand, still slightly weak from the burn, gave the melody a human quality. The sound of dawn struggling to emerge through the dry season's final resistance. In the wings, Maitre Salif watched with tears streaming down his face. He finally understood. On the opposite side, Mamadou Kone stood motionless, his expression shifting from skepticism to shock as he recognized the pocket watch on the kora. Zara Kone, watching from the third row, saw the moment everything changed. The skeptical audience, many of whom had come to witness an embarrassing failure, began leaning forward. Phones recording the performance lowered slightly as people stopped watching through screens and started truly listening. Ibrahim didn't play perfectly. There were minor technical errors, moments of hesitation, but something in his performance transcended Technikia's story told through the music, a human journey from cold isolation to tentative warmth. As he reached the piece's climax, where the dry season finally yielded to dawn, Ibrahim's hands moved with newfound confidence. The music swelled, filling the auditorium with a sound that seemed impossibly grand for a single instrument, a single player. And then, as the final notes faded, an absolute silence enveloped the room. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved, no one breathed. Then one person stood and began clapping. It was Kofi Diallo, Ibrahim's friend who had urged him to back out weeks ago. A second person joined him, then a third. Within moments, the entire auditorium was on its feet, the applause thundering like a storm. Ibrahim stood, slightly dazed by the response. His eyes found Maitre Salif in the wings. He gave a single nod, a gesture of approval more valuable than the standing ovation. As he bowed slightly and turned to leave the stage, he saw Mamadou Kone still standing in the opposite wings, the pocket watch now in his hand. Their eyes met again, but this time the defiance was gone. In its place was a complex mix of emotions, confusion, recognition, and the first hint of understanding. The music had spoken, not of competition, but of connection. Backstage, chaos erupted as festival organizers, journalists, and VIPs crowded the area. Security struggled to maintain order as everyone sought the same thing: access to Ibrahim Traoré and Mamadou Kone. Ibrahim found himself ushered into a small artist lounge, away from the noise. His hands still trembled from the performance, adrenaline coursing through him. Before he could collect himself, the door opened and Zara rushed in. That was... She seemed at a loss for words, unusual for a sharp journalist. I don't even know how to describe what just happened out there. Was it that bad? Ibrahim asked, only half joking. Zara laughed. You really don't know, do you? The audience is still standing. People are crying, Ibrahim, actually crying. Before he could respond, the door opened again. This time it was Maitre Salif, his eyes red, but his posture straight and proud. You played with heart, he said simply. Ibrahim started to embrace him, but stopped when he saw who had just entered. Behind him, Mamadou Kone, still holding the pocket watch, his expression unreadable. The room fell silent. The 2 Kora artists stared at each other for a long time. Years of misunderstanding and resentment hung in the air between them. Finally, Mamadou spoke. Where did you get this? He held up the pocket watch. Maitre Salif gave it to me last night, Ibrahim replied. It belonged to your grandfather. Mamadou turned to his old teacher. For the first time, his perfect composure cracked. All those years, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. All those years, and you taught him instead of me. I taught many students after you, Maitre Salif said gently. You weren't the only one. In Ghana, in Senegal, in Nigeria, Ibrahim was just one of many, but I gave him this piece. My piece, Mamadou insisted. Dawn after the dry season was what you taught me when we had to flee. I taught it to him because he needed it as much as you did. Maitre Salif moved slowly toward Mamadou, as if approaching a wounded animal. But you stopped playing, Mamadou. You chose a different path until you challenged him. Mamadou looked down at the pocket watch in his hand. My grandfather said this was lost when we fled. He said he had to leave it behind, like everything else. He gave it to me the night before you left, Maitre Salif explained. To keep it safe, he said. But I think he knew I'd need something to remember you all by. Ibrahim watched the interaction with growing understanding. This wasn't just about music or a public challenge. It was about loss, about paths not taken, about the invisible threads that had connected their lives across continents and decades. "I need to tell you both something," Maitre Salif said, suddenly looking very tired. He sat carefully in a chair. "Please, sit." They did, the tension in the room shifting to concern as they noticed his pale face, the slight tremor in his hands, not from stress or emotion. "I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to overshadow this moment." He took a deep breath. "I'm ill. Cancer. The doctors give me perhaps 3 months." The news hit like a physical blow. Ibrahim felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. Beside him, Mamadou went completely still. "That's why you agreed to help me," Ibrahim said slowly. "Why you moved into my residence? Why you pushed so hard?" Maitre Salif nodded. "I needed to finish something before I go, to close a circle that began in Bamako years ago." He turned to Mamadou. "To see my first prodigy again, even if he hated me for disappearing." "I never hated you," Mamadou said, his voice breaking. "I searched for you for years, and I avoided you because I was ashamed." Maitre Salif reached out and took Mamadou's hand with his left, Ibrahim's with his right. "Ashamed that I couldn't keep my promise to follow your family to Burkina Faso. Ashamed that I lost so many years in prison that I couldn't be the teacher you deserved." Tears streamed down Mamadou's face now. His perfect composure was gone. "You saved my family. My father said we'd never have escaped without your help. And now you're the greatest Kora artist of your generation," Maitre Salif said, pride clear in his voice. "As I knew you would be." He turned to Ibrahim. "And you found a different way to change the world with national projects instead of music." "But I gave it up," Ibrahim said. "I stopped playing Kora because it wasn't your true path. Music is part of your life, but not your whole life," Maitre Salif smiled. "That doesn't make it less valuable. Sometimes a few notes played with true emotion are worth more than 1,000 played with perfect technique." The door opened again, and a festival organizer poked her head in. "Mr. Traoré, Mr. Kone, the press is waiting for a statement, and the audience is demanding an encore." Maitre Salif's eyes lit up. "An encore?" he repeated. "Yes, that's perfect." "I can't play again," Ibrahim protested. "I only prepared one piece." "And I've already performed my program," Mamadou added. "Not separately," Maitre Salif said. "Together." The two men looked at each other, stunned. "The Kora on stage is a royal Kora," Maitre Salif continued. "Large enough for 2 players. You'll perform Dawn After the Dry Season as a duet." "That's impossible," Mamadou objected. "We've never rehearsed together. The piece isn't written for 4 hands." "Then you'll create a new arrangement." In this room now, Maitre Salif's voice regained the commanding tone of a teacher. "Mamadou, you know the technical structure better than anyone. Ibrahim, you've found the emotional heart of the piece. Together you can play it as it was meant to be played." For a moment, it seemed impossible. 2 rivals from entirely different worlds improvising a duet version of a piece neither had ever played as a duet. But then Mamadou stood and walked to a small kora in the corner of the artist lounge. "The opening should stay as written," he said, playing a few notes. "But here in the development, you could take the melody while I provide a counterpoint." Ibrahim joined him at the kora. "And in the middle, where the dawn begins, what if we alternate your technical precision for the ice-breaking, my interpretation for the warmth beneath?" For 15 minutes, they worked quickly, speaking a language that transcended their differences, the language of music. Maitre Salif watched, occasionally offering a suggestion, but mostly letting them find their way together. When they stepped onto the stage 10 minutes later, the audience, which had refused to leave, erupted in fresh applause. Ibrahim and Mamadou bowed together, then sat side by side at the large kora. Mamadou turned to the audience. "Tonight, we'll perform something unprecedented, a duet of Dawn After the Dry Season, created backstage just moments ago." Ibrahim added, "This performance is dedicated to Maitre Salif, who taught us both that music isn't about competition, but connection." Then they began to play. The piece transformed under their forehands. Mamadou's technical brilliance complemented Ibrahim's emotional depth. Where they had once been rivals, they became partners, each elevating the other's performance. In the front row, Zahra Kone recorded every moment, tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Maitre Salif sat with his eyes closed, his expression one of perfect serenity. As the final notes faded, the auditorium exploded. The applause lasted nearly 10 minutes, with multiple curtain calls. Finally, exhausted but elated, Ibrahim and Mamadou returned backstage. Maitre Salif was waiting for them. "Now you understand," he said. "Music isn't meant to divide, it's meant to unite." As the adrenaline of the performance began to fade, the reality of Maitre Salif's illness settled over them again. Ibrahim spoke first. "We'll get you to the best doctors. Experimental treatments, whatever it takes." Maitre Salif shook his head. "I'm at peace, but I have one more request." He reached into his bag and pulled out an old leather portfolio. "This manuscript has never been performed publicly. I protected it when I fled Mali, kept it safe all these years." He opened the portfolio to reveal yellowed pages covered in handwritten musical notation. "It's the most beautiful music never heard. The final composition of Serge Kone, thought destroyed during the political upheaval. My teacher saved it, passed it to me to keep safe." Mamadou Kone gasped, instantly recognizing its significance. This would be a major musical discovery. "I want you both to perform it," Maitre Salif continued, "at my memorial when the time comes. Not as rivals, but as partners, as my legacy to the world." Ibrahim and Mamadou exchanged a glance. The visionary leader and the master kora artist, unlikely allies, now entrusted with a precious musical treasure. "We will," Mamadou promised, his voice solemn. "Together," Ibrahim added. Maitre Salif closed the portfolio and handed it to them. "The final page is missing," he said with a small smile. "I've kept it separate all these years for safety." "Where is it?" Mamadou asked. "Somewhere safe. You'll receive it after I'm gone." He stood, suddenly looking stronger, like the formidable teacher they both remembered. But now there are journalists waiting. There are questions to answer. A new chapter is beginning. As they left the artist lounge to face the press, Ibrahim reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. What began as a public challenge had become something far more meaningful, a reconnection with his past, a bridge to an unexpected future. And somewhere in that journey, he had rediscovered what he'd forgotten, that sometimes the boldest innovations come not from technology or technique, but from the human heart. The missing final page of Serge Kone's lost manuscript waited like a promise, a dramatic piece of music. Would the visionary leader and the master kora artist keep their promise to their shared teacher? Would these two different worlds truly collaborate to bring this unheard masterpiece to life? The answer lay in the future, waiting to be played note by note. The story of Ibrahim Traoré and Mamadou Kone, with their shared teacher Maitre Salif, is not just a musical journey, but a profound reflection on contemporary life. In today's world, we're often caught in the whirlwind of competition, the expectation to excel in a specific field. Ibrahim, a visionary leader, initially accepted Mamadou's challenge as a duel between technology and art. Yet Maitre Salif, the wise old teacher, taught him that music is not just technique, but heart and emotion. This reminds us that, in work or personal life, technical perfection is sometimes not enough. It's the experiences, the scars, and the authentic emotions that create depth and difference. Moreover, the story touches on another core issue, the paths not taken and regret. Mamadou carried resentment for feeling abandoned, while Maitre Salif bore the weight of a promise he couldn't keep and shame. In real life, We too often grapple with similar emotions. The lesson here is to find ways to confront and heal past wounds. Maitre Salif giving Sekou Kone's pocket watch to Ibrahim and Mamadou recognizing it is a powerful symbol of resolving misunderstanding and reconciliation. Sometimes, a small gesture, a revealed truth, can break down walls built over years. Finally, the message of collaboration over competition is the most valuable lesson. Maitre Salif didn't want Ibrahim to play better than Mamadou, but to play differently. And the culmination was the duet of Dawn After the Dry Season, a work created from the fusion of two seemingly opposing styles. This affirms that even in fields that seem to allow only winners and losers, there's room for collaboration and mutual enhancement. Like Ibrahim and Mamadou, individuals with different backgrounds and skills can together create something far greater than when they work alone. In an increasingly connected world, the ability to collaborate, embrace differences, and find common ground is the key to achieving true success and creating lasting value. If this story of connection from the heart has touched you, please hit the subscribe button and leave a mark of support. Thank you for joining us on this journey to rediscover true values, and we look forward to meeting you again in the next stories where music and life intertwine.